Oh, here's that one. She's in green.
Left, right, left, right, left. Hard, 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 left, right. Low, right, left, right. Left, right, left, right, hard, hard. Yeah. Hey. Fred, Fred! Fred! Ready, Fred! Come! Present! Huh! Come on, sir. Order! Huh! Forward! Right!
All right, are these the same kids that you saw 5 days ago? What do you think? How about a round of applause? Woo! Pretty impressive. I'd like to thank the staff, the student staff, the drill instructors we had. How about a round of applause for well done for everyone, and congratulations for making it through to be soon to be fourth class midshipman. You know, the midshipman has a long and storied history and rank. Back to before the 1600s, they had the rank of midshipman. And does anyone know where midshipman came from, or what a midshipman was? Back in the day, before you became an officer, you had to go understudy. It took 4 or 5 years. You worked your way up for rank through the study, the ranks, say navigation, seamanship, how to be an officer, how to be a gentleman. A lot of the midshipmen came from fine families, but some made their ways up through the ranks. Anyways, the officers were slept in the aft end of the ship. The seamen, the enlisted slept in the forward part of the ship. Where do you think the midshipmen slept? In the midshipman part, in the midship. So that's why they called a midshipman. And through our history, midshipmen, throughout all the great navies in the world, have fought alongside the officers, the enlisted, the leaders. And there have been some really famous midshipmen in the annals of history. Who's heard of Admiral Nelson in the Battle of Trafalgar? Anyone hear that? Probably one of the most famous sea battles in the history of naval warfare, the Battle of Trafalgar. And Admiral Nelson had a signal. Back then they signaled all the ships with flags. You know, there was no email, internet. This is 1805. I think it was October 21st, 1805. They communicated with signal flags. And he had a signal, the famous signal, England expects every man to do his duty. And they went on and motivated, and they did their duty, and they beat the French, and they beat the Spanish was there, but mostly the French, and they won at that battle. One of the greatest naval victories of modern warfare. Well, an interesting note is the actual signal. What he said was, England confides every man will do his duty. The word confides, and there was a Lieutenant John Pascoe, who was a signals officer. They didn't have a signal for confide, so he had them change it to expects. So there was one signal, you had to spell it out. And John Pascoe, if you look at the history, he was very closely removed from being a midshipman. He started out as a cabin boy, worked his way up through the chain of command, became a midshipman. Very soon after being the midshipman, he was down to Admiral Nelson's communications officer, and famous. That's one of the most famous naval quotes, or responsible for that naval quote. And why am I talking about Lieutenant John Pascoe? Well, because he was a midshipman before that, and brings it to the point. Every one of these midshipmen, each one of you, are going to someday advance. Every fleet commander, every commanding general, every CNO once started as a midshipman, right where you see before him. They're saying these shoes right here, midshipman. There's no doubt in my mind that many of you will go on to command troops, command ships, command aviation squadrons, command infantry battalions, and go on to become flag officers and command troops, Marines, sailors, Marines, and have successful careers. And it all started out, and they all were midshipmen. Your family's proud of you, your country's proud of you, and we expect and we know that you will do your duty for your country.